Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Bhagavad Gita class. And we are on chapter 4. We will attempt to complete chapter 4 today. Before we start, let us recite the Mangalacharan prayers. So let me share my screen. Are you seeing the screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay, great. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutah Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमामि विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय all right, okay, welcome everyone. And I see Ram and Shrikar in the same room with Tejas. Welcome Tejas Prabhu, very very learned and very sweet devotee. So I'm
Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much.
privileged to have you here. All right. So we are studying Bhagavad Gita and we are on chapter 4. Today I'll be able to do a short class, but there aren't that many topics left in chapter 4. So our hope is to cover this topic, the remaining verses, in the next 45 minutes or so. So before we start, please make sure you have your paper copy of Bhagavad Gita with you in front of you. And we will start from 4.25. We left off at 4.24. So what we had discussed towards the later portions, I won't summarize the whole of 4th chapter so far. It has a lot of important points, especially in the first 15 verses. And then, so in the first 15 and verses, Lord Krishna is describing about Bhakti Gyan, or there is a strong aspect of Bhakti included. Then later on, he begins to describe the core process of Jnana Yoga and starts off with describing the what I would call as the basic prerequisites. Prerequisites means living a simple life without too many objects to divert one's senses and being satisfied with whatever is available. So, living in such kind of a detached mode. And then he is eligible to experience the Brahman realization, or to obtain the Brahman realization. Now, today what we will discuss is the core process of Jnana Yoga. So, before that starts, Lord Krishna describes in the 24th verse that what is Brahman. So, that is the first occurrence of Brahman in the Bhagavad Gita. And it has been introduced in second chapter, but that's the summary of entire Bhagavad Gita. But between the second, third, and fourth chapter, Brahman is now coming first time in the 24th verse. And essentially what is said is that, oh, am I not sharing my screen? Sorry. Now is the screen shared?
Yes.
So Brahman is the spiritual element. It is the basis of everything. All matter is supported by Brahman. So Brahman as a spiritual element is being introduced in chapter 4. Now, how to realize that everything in this world is some kind of a alteration or some form of Brahman. How to see Brahman in the world around us. And that is the process, the core process of Dhyana Yoga. So how to see that this entire creation is ultimately the same absolute truth, is one with the absolute truth. There is oneness between the material and the spiritual because ultimately everything is supported by Brahman. So that is the, in a crude sense, the main focus of Jnana Yoga. Okay, so we move to verse number 25. So these 6 verses, 25 to 30. So give me 1 second. Let me. So describe how to execute the path or process of Jnana Yoga. One thing I want to mention about Jnana Yoga and also Karma Yoga and Dhyana Yoga, which will come, the main purpose of Lord Krishna to describe Jnana Yoga, also Karma Yoga, also Dhyana Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita is twofold. One is for sake of completion, that all the processes of yoga are described. And secondly, and since Bhagavad Gita is going to tell us that Bhakti Yoga is the highest and best, the second purpose is how to dovetail or how to channelize, how to channel any activity that we do as karma, any knowledge that we obtain as jnana, and any dhyana that we do is channeled towards Krishna, which makes it a part of bhakti. So how to channelize Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga into bhakti, that will be described in the later chapters. So having that fundamental understanding of Jnana Yoga helps. But following Jnana Yoga as the fundamental process is not going to be the final recommendation of Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Yes, Ragatmika Mataji or Rajvidya Prabhu, you have question.
Krishna Prabhuji, just a very quick clarification on the definition. Is this same as mahat tattva? Brahman is same as mahat tattva?
No, mahat tattva is the material element. Okay, we will discuss that in the 15th or the 13th and 15th chapters. But mahat tattva is what is known as the combined material element composed of the 3 gunas. So mahat tattva is not the same as Brahman.
Thank you.
All right. So, any other questions before we begin from last class? Okay, fine. So, I will go through these slides. Please pay careful attention. I'll go through them relatively quickly. So, how to execute Jnana Yoga? So in Jnana Yoga, the focus is purely internal. Okay. In Karma Yoga, the focus was external. You do the activities, but with complete detachment from the result. Okay. But you do your activity. In Jnana Yoga, that doing of the activity itself is getting diminished. And Lord Krishna will say, reduce it to almost zero. So even the activity is being, the external activity is being eliminated, and only internal activity, so to say, is activated. And therefore, that is the internal focus. An internal focus on what? On the Supreme Brahman, on this spiritual element. And this happens, the gradual process that will be described is to realize that the material world or everything in the material world is temporary. It is ultimately, I mean, material world as in all material pleasures and pains, everything is temporary. And therefore, abandon the material element completely. One should completely abandon their attachment to it and ultimately the material world itself. Not just one's attachment, but one's interaction. You can have detachment from the material world, but still interact with it. Interact with it in a detached way. That would be nishkama karma yoga. Here, one what would you say? Extracts or completely removes oneself from the material interaction as well. So to abandon the material element completely, and this requires severe self-discipline and self-restraint. And therefore, the focus on yajna will come. Very strong focus on the word yajna. The English translation of yajna is sacrifice. So, and sacrifice, any kind of sacrifice involves self-discipline, self-restraint to be able to sacrifice, to give up something. Sacrifice means to give up, which requires discipline and self-restraint. And ultimately to calm down and ultimately shut down the external senses completely, which means stop all interaction with the material world. So that is the process in summary of Jnana Yoga. I have highlighted the key points which will be elaborated by Lord Krishna in these 6 verses, 25 to 30. All right. So all these points on this slide that are mentioned are very key points that will come up in the subsequent verses. So yajna. Now, yajna from a modern, now practical application. This is what I'm giving you, a more practical understanding. Jnana Yoga, as you can imagine from this description, is very hard to perform. Completely stopping all interaction with the material world is impossible for, I would say, all of us. And therefore, bhakti is the recommended path where we do not need to stop interaction with the material world. But this process, as it looks on this slide, is extremely difficult to perform. So if we were to understand what is yajna or sacrifice in the modern context, I have made some points here. And as you can see, all of these require some self-discipline, self-restraint. They are also yajna. They require some sacrifice. So doing these activities as sadhakas, as practitioners of the spiritual path, we can consider these to be our tiny yajnas. In the ancient times, these were more elaborate and more, one would dedicate all of one's energy towards the yajnas in the more Vedic sense. But this is, I have put it across here in a more modern sense. I won't go through each of these, but you can have a look at it. Now, the focus of Jnana Yoga is to spiritualize all these activities. So we have to do the activities, but the goal is to spiritualize them by knowledge. Okay, so we will cover that in the process of Jnana Yoga. Yes, Ram.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this is Shankar.
Speaker.
Question about, sorry, this is a late question. Question about text 24. You might have already mentioned this, but I might have missed it. But could you tell me exactly which part of the text 24 refers to the Brahman? Because when I read the translation, it says a person who's fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, which is Bhakti, right, is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom. But is the spiritual kingdom referring to Brahma Jyoti? I was confused by this.
Well, if you read the verse, Brahman is appearing 6 times. Brahmarpanam Brahma, Havir Brahmagnau Brahmana Bhutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. So Brahman is appearing so many times in the Sanskrit, and Srila Prabhupada has given different contextual translations of Brahman as Krishna consciousness, as the spiritual kingdom, as the spiritual activity, the absolute, and the spiritual nature. So I'm reading the translation as such and picking out all the contextual meanings of the word Brahman that Srila Prabhupada has given, and I read out like so many of them. Krishna consciousness, spiritual kingdom, spiritual activity, absolute, and the spiritual nature.
Okay, so this was spiritualized in a sense, or like personal, like personalized, I guess, right? From all the words with Brahma in it.
Yes, so every acharya is free to provide a certain interpretation of the verse that is contextual to his mood and the main message that he is trying to convey through his or her translations and commentaries. So Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, he is strongly focusing on bhakti, and it is very practical bhakti. So, and that is very nice because that is something that we can, use in our life. We just don't want a certificate and hang it on the wall. We want to be able to use it, and therefore this is a very nice way of putting the 24th verse in a more practical way.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Okay, but since I am making the assumption that you all will continue through the course, you won't drop out halfway, I am giving a sort of a little bit more literal meaning of this verse. And later on in the Bhagavad Gita, you will, Lord Krishna himself will make it very clear that one must perform bhakti, and how to perform bhakti to a large extent. All these details will come up. So Srila Prabhupada is giving a contextual understanding, and some people may just read 1 page, 2 page. Maybe they open this verse and just read this one. Srila Prabhupada wants all such people to get some sense of what is Krishna consciousness. If he gave just the literal meaning and somebody happened to read just this one, it would go over his head. And Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita's intention was not that.
Yeah,
that's why I said sometime, and I say that, this translation of Bhagavad Gita may not win the Pulitzer Prize or the Nobel Prize for being accurate in the literal sense. Okay, if that is the standard by which one measures it. But if somebody measures it by the standard of how many people become devotees after reading it, this would, become number 1 by a large stretch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So I'm giving a blend of both.
Thank
All right.
you so much, Prabhu.
Okay, so to spiritualize all activities, and in this verse number 25, there is a contrast to nishkama karma yoga, or karma yoga in general. Was contrasted in, or will be is being contrasted in the 25th verse, where 25th verse reads, some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering the different sacrifices to them. So this we discussed in 3rd chapter. This is Karma Yoga. And some of them offer sacrifices in the fire of Supreme Brahman. So that is the process of Jnana Yoga. Both involve sacrifices. One is external sacrifice to the demigods, one is internal. And the internal, I think I mention it in the next slide, that internal sacrifice is through the chanting of Om or the Pranava or the Omkara. This will come in the 17th chapter, 14th chapter. But that is the process of Jnana Yoga by the focusing on of the breath on the sound Om. So that is what is meant by offering the sacrifice in the fire of Supreme Brahman. So that is 25th verse. 1 second. So yeah, so and so I will So 25th verse, Brahma Yajna. So this Brahma Yajna, which is mentioned in the 25th verse, is the utterance of Om. Om has 3 syllables, A, U, and M or Ma. So it is composed of 3 sounds, and that combination of the 3 sounds is called Om. And the contrast is given in the 25th verse with Karma Yoga or Yajna towards the demigods. In this case, it is Brahma Yajna, which is the utterance of Om. Then 26th, some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, I'm reading the translation now, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So basically, what is being told here is to sacrifice the external. Now we are getting into the focus or the process of Jnana Yoga. So like I mentioned, sacrificing the external. So sacrifice the senses, because senses are the ones that are the tools or our instruments of interaction with the external world. That's called as the senses. And the external world is comprised of sense objects. Okay, so sacrificing the senses and sense objects both, and sacrificing them by the process of samyama. So you will see the word samyama is there. Samyama agnishu juhvati. So to burn them up or to give them up in the agni, in the fire of samyama. And samyama, as you all know, means self-discipline or self-restraint. So by self-restraint, start cutting yourself off with the external world. Then go to the next level. So not just the senses, but also the prana karma. I should have colored some of these in blue color, very important words. 27. So the translation of 27 is others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Little bit poetic language, but the focus here is to go to the next level, which is to sacrifice. Again, the word sacrifice is important. I said earlier, Jnana Yoga is all about sacrifice, yajna, and the sacrifice, the activity of the life breath, prana karma. What is prana karma? Is the process of keeping the prana in the body, and it's mainly known as breathing. And by an even stronger samyama, which is called here as atma samyama, very strong restraint, and aided by jnana deepa. So by making further progress into this Jnana Yoga process, one is able to exert even stronger self-control and is able to control their or sacrifice their breathing activity as well. Then 28th verse. So all this seems like a lot of austerity, almost undoable. And so Lord Krishna says that in the 28th verse, any kind of yajna includes austerity. The meaning of yajna itself is sacrifice. Sacrifice involves austerity. So 28th verse says, having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of the eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. So different types of yajnas have been described, or not described, but mentioned in the 28th verse. The Sanskrit words I have included: dravya yajna, tapa yajna, yoga yajna, swadhyaya yajna, and jnana yajna. All these are yajnas, which means they all involve some level of sacrifice and austerity. So yes, one who wants to attain the spiritual element, then yajna or sacrifice is essential. So, and therefore, this final level of curtailing the breathing process and also the eating process involves severe sacrifice and austerity. So 29th verse, still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others curtailing the eating process offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. So all this is very severe amount of sacrifice that one has to do, and internally focus on Om, the Omkara, or what is known as the Pranava. So that is the core process and the focus of Jnana Yoga. Okay. And what is the result? The result is what happened? The destination is that they attain the stage of Brahma Sanatanam. So last line says that yanti means they attain or they approach Brahma Sanatanam. So all these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. So Brahma Sanatanam, Srila Prabhupada is translating as the supreme eternal atmosphere. So they get cleansed of all their sinful reactions, not just sinful, it means sinful and pious. All the karmic reactions is all wiped out, and they attain this spiritual platform, or basically they attain the Brahman realization or moksha, the Brahman moksha, the Sayujya Mukti. Okay. Then 31, Lord Krishna is saying that sacrifice is essential. Again, O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? So sacrifice and self-restraint is very important for any kind of happiness. No sacrifice and complete lack of self-restraint will give very temporary happiness. But even for a purely materialistic person to be happy on a little bit long term will require some restraint. Even the richest person is very disciplined to stay rich and to enjoy the richness. I don't need to explain. Most of the rich people have very disciplined lifestyles, and then only they are able to stay rich and enjoy the richness, both. So I don't need to elaborate on that. It is self-obvious that it is required. So what then to speak of the next life, or attaining moksha, getting rid of the cycle of birth and death? definitely requires sacrifice and self-restraint. Okay. Now the focus is on know and do. So for the beginners coming back, so now the process and focus of Jnana Yoga has been described. For us, we are not at that level. So we are doing still activities in the material world. And the way to apply Jnana Yoga is to know what we are doing. That means act with knowledge. And many of us know that, yes, the modern world has done a good job of training us that, or putting this philosophy in us that you must understand what you're doing. And that is actually one of the reasons why many people are moving away from dharmic activities or from spiritual activities, because they think it is just some rituals. They don't know the meaning behind it, so they give it up. So in some sense, it is a good thing, because they are trying to find the meaning and then only adopt it. Not blind faith, or not because I just saw somebody doing it, so I will do it. Nobody does such things today. So it has been the fault of the, whoever seniors, that they could not explain why to do spiritual activities. But very strong acharyas and preachers like Srila Prabhupada and so many others have told us why we should do these things. And when we go into the Shastra, we understand why we should do. When we are convinced about it, then many people take it up. The most modern people, the most, what you can say, the most scientific minded people, they begin to take it up once they understand what is the motivation or what is the reason behind doing these activities. So knowing and doing is very important, and that is the blend of Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. One must understand what is Bhakti, why to do it, what is the benefit we will get by doing so. Understanding all the details of Bhakti enables us to do Bhakti with a lot of conviction, lot of faith, and a lot of determination. Just like anything, I see so many students, they are doing hard work in studying. They know if they study hard, this, that, whatever, they will get good grades. They will get they will have a better life in the future. So they understand that, and that's why they are putting in the hard work now, which is sacrifice, which is austerity. So knowing and doing. So that is what is being said here. And there are the significance of knowing the purpose and then doing. Yajna vido. In the 30th verse, this term is used. One must understand. The 30th verse says that all these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice. So knowing the meaning of the sacrifice is important. Similarly, in the 32nd verse, it says, I'll read the translation. All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. So the focus is on the knowing, and the knowing is being highlighted here as an activity itself. That means the process of swadhyaya or learning. So just the activity of knowing is liberating. Okay. And so knowing what? The special purpose of our actions. Whatever we are doing, what is the purpose of that? Okay, 33rd verse, very important verse. So this is the conclusion of Jnana Yoga, the process of Jnana Yoga, almost. And now 33rd verse is establishing the superiority of Jnana Yoga over Karma Yoga. That Jnana Yoga is superior to Karma Yoga, and those who seriously perform Karma Yoga. And when I am saying Karma Yoga, I mean nishkama Karma Yoga. Those who are seriously performing nishkama Karma Yoga will automatically come to the stage of Jnana Yoga. That is a natural progression towards Jnana Yoga. Okay. So 33rd verse says, O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So 2 points are being mentioned. That Shreyan, I'll read the Sanskrit here. Shreyan, Shreya means better. Dravya mayad yajna. So Dravya mayad yajna means this is referring to the karma yoga or nishkama karma yoga. Jnana yajna parantapa. So Shreyan means superior to, okay, or greater than. So the first word is the less, and the next word is the higher. That's how Sanskrit grammar works. Shreyan. So Shreyan greater than Dravya Mayad Yagya, which means the Nishkama Karma Yoga, is Jnana Yagya, my dear Parantapa, my dear Arjuna. Okay, and then Sarva Karma Akhilam Partha Jnane Parisamapyate. So that Sarva Karma Akhilam, that the or Sarvam Karma Akhilam, that after performing all these Karma Yoga very nicely, the one is automatically, it automatically culminates Samapti or Samapyate towards Jnana. So one who is very sincerely performing, so that's what I have said. All kinds of Karma Yoga ultimately lead towards Jnana Yoga. Okay. And the real Jnana Yoga is knowledge of Bhagavan, knowledge of Krishna, and that will come from the 7th chapter onwards. So that will be the real Jnana, but right now the focus is on Jnana Yoga. Okay, any questions till this point? Yes, Ram, Shrikar.
Hare Krishna. So my question, so just to clarify, 4.33 says that Jnana Yoga is better than Nishkama Karma Yoga, right?
Yes.
And can you just clarify how all kinds of Karma Yoga ultimately lead towards Jnana Yoga? I know you just mentioned that, but is that also part of verse 33? Or
Yes,
how
second line, Sarva Karma Akhilam Partha Jnane Parisamapyate.
So, okay, yeah, right. So does that basically mean that like if you do enough Karma Yoga, it'll become Jnana? Or, how would that work? Because
the process that one is following of Nishkama Karma Yoga, if one is following it very sincerely, ultimately one will get attracted to following the process of Jnana Yoga, which means after what is Nishkama Karma Yoga? Performing the activity, but no attachment to the result, completely detached from the result.
yeah.
Then one will start becoming detached from performing the activity itself.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Rajvidya Prabhu.
Prabhuji, we were listening to this video by Guru Maharaj on Bhishma, and in the end, in the last stages of his life, Bhishma gave up all the activities. Is that what we are referring to in the 4.27, where he stopped?
Well, Bhishma cannot be put in this box of Jnana Yoga. Bhishma he's a topmost devotee. So
Okay.
your question is what? That can the last stages of Bhishma be put into or
Yeah, it
4.27?
seemingly
Externally, we can say that yes. Externally, yes. Okay, but internally, it is given in the 9th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, that his focus was entirely on Krishna. So he was not, the focus was not on stopping the breath or on pranayam or any of those things. The focus was simply on Krishna.
Okay.
So his internal mood was not that of Jnana Yoga, but on Bhakti. Externally, it may look the same.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, here you have given knowing what is the spiritual purpose of our actions from Vedas. So spiritual purpose is the same, right? Krishna consciousness. So why can't we directly mention that instead of saying spiritual
Not
purpose?
really. Spiritual purposes may not be Krishna consciousness. Spiritual purpose may be Sayujya Mukti, merging into the Brahman. That is also spiritual purpose. Krishna Bhakti is just one, the best, the highest spiritual purpose. But for many, many, many spiritual practitioners, that is not the case. We are so much into bhakti that we cannot realize that there's this whole mass of other people who are following different processes, also trying to towards a spiritual goal. If you really kind of get outside and go to some of these places in India where people are following all these various practices, you will see how prevalent these other processes are. And bhakti will become smaller and smaller in terms of the pie chart, the percentage of people that follow it.
Mhm.
Okay.
But eventually everyone has to come to that, right, Prabhuji?
Eventually, yes. Maybe in this lifetime, maybe in future lifetimes. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevah sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. So who knows, after bahunam janmanam ante or after within this janma, that depends on whether one is able to come in contact with a devotee or not.
Yeah, so like Srila Prabhupada ji also, I mean, our focus is Krishna consciousness. That is why we have SCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So here, why are we opening it up to include all other purposes? Why not only, I mean, that's the ultimate thing. That's the highest level.
What is
Kind
your
of.
question? Why we are talking about this while we are
Why are we kind of opening it up to include all other purposes as well
why
when
are we
the
opening what up to? You said why are we opening it up to? Opening what?
here we have written the spiritual purpose of our actions from the Vedas
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah,
actually
because it's
ultimately
coming in Bhagavad
Krishna
Gita.
consciousness.
No, in this portion of Bhagavad Gita, if you go literally, then bhakti is not being mentioned as the only spiritual purpose. On the contrary, attaining Brahman is the spiritual purpose.
Okay.
So in this portion of Bhagavad Gita, and that is why Srila Prabhupada has, at many places changed it to mean Krishna consciousness. Many people criticize Prabhupada, saying, "Oh, why he has done that." And I also keep saying that the ultimate purpose is bhakti, and but the literal meaning is this.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Shrikar,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I have a question about this superiority of dhyana yoga over karma yoga. So in karma yoga, in BG 3.9, it says that work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed.
yeah,
Otherwise, work causes bondage. So basically, we're offering, like we have some material possessions or material things, and we're using those in Krishna's service. The whole like a whole idea of yukta vairagya.
yes.
But in Jnana Yoga, it seems that there's completely detaching ourselves from any objects, right?
At the advanced level of Jnana Yoga, yes.
But that's the aim. And then the aim is also to like merge, like realize Brahman or
That
merge.
is the destination, yes.
So
Isn't this more personal?
so the question is basically like we're talking about this being superior, but karma yoga seems more personal than jnana yoga.
Yeah, you can say that. Well, I don't know why you say it's more personal. It's more, it involves more activity. You may want to say it's more practical. Why do you say it is personal? If you just state or stay with karma yoga without bhakti, what is personal in it? You are
But
performing actions, but you are completely giving up the ownership or the rightfulness or the proprietorship on the result.
so
That is Nishkama
is
Karma Yoga, what is more personal or less personal about it than Jnana Yoga?
right. So I guess this goes back to the answer to the question I asked before, is that Prabhupada's translations are more suited towards a bhakti related answer.
Yes,
Because
he is painting bhakti all over these processes.
in everything. But
Yes.
the definition of karma yoga itself, it doesn't have any component. If it's separate from bhakti, it has no component relating to do with Krishna. It's only nishkama karma yoga is just
Yes.
whatever work you do, you expect no result. That's the only that's like the main definition of karma yoga, independent of bhakti.
Yes.
Okay. So in that case, taking that definition, then yeah, they're both equally like impersonal, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, let's try to complete this quickly. So, how to know? Now, how, this is a very important verse, one of the memorization verses. And how to know is, the answer is from Shastra and Guru. So, the Shastra has been covered earlier, where it was said from the Vedas. And now comes how from the Guru. So Shastra is the original source. It is like the textbook, and Guru is like the professor who is teaching from the textbook. He doesn't manufacture his own textbook. I mean, sometimes professors write textbooks, but they do not go against the basic textbook, like Newton wrote whatever Principia Mathematica. That's the fundamental textbook of mechanics. And so many people, if you go to a bookshop, you will find 200 books on mechanics. They don't differ from the Newton's fundamental book. So the Shastra are the Vedas. The Gurus profess the Shastra. The Vedas, they may write more books, but they are 100% aligned. They are just telling it in a more modern way, giving more examples, more realizations, telling it in different ways, making it easier to understand. So Guru explains the meanings, the intricacies of Shastra, and most importantly, what Guru does is clarifies doubts. As we will see later, doubt is the number one killer of our spiritual progress. So this verse is very important. Tad vidhi pranipatena. So how to learn that vidhi, the process of learning, tad vidhi. Now the focus has been on this knowledge. The vidhi or the process of gaining the knowledge is by approaching a Jnaninas Tattva Darshina, a pure devotee, as again giving painting bhakti on top of it, pure devotee or Tattva Darshina, one who has himself seen the truth, approaching such a person and getting upadekshanti, listening from him, listening the instructions or the discourse. The literal translation of upadesh is discourse. So listening from them, not just answers to our questions, they will speak in general terms. So listening to Upadesh and then doing three things. Pranipatena, approaching them with humility, not with a combative or an argumentative mood. The gurus are very smart. They may be humble themselves, but for, as you can see, Srila Prabhupada and many gurus, if you ask them like a winded, loaded question, they will happily give you a loaded answer as well. So humility, very important, and then they will open their heart. They will share so nicely. Pariprashnena, ask questions, clarify doubts. If you don't ask, then the doubts will remain, and then you will not get the full benefit. And most important is seva. If you find a guru from whom you can learn, forget about learning. Do seva. Do seva so much that they will automatically come to know what your questions are and they will answer your questions. Become a snigdha shishya. That is the purpose of seva. So if you find a guru like that, then never leave him. Attach yourself to him like a, हिंदी में कहते हैं ना, जोंक के जैसे पकड़ लो, छोड़ने का नहीं कभी भी. And they will open their heart and tell you everything. You don't even need to do the pariprashnena. Let me show you a very important and very sweet verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.8. Okay. So remember this verse. Very important. Let me show you. Library, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, 8th verse. No, yeah. Bruyah snigdhasya shishyasya guravo guhyam apyota. Okay, the sages are telling to Suta Goswami that please tell us, we are your snigdha shishyas. And a guru for a snigdha shishya means an affectionate disciple. Guru also has disciples of various levels. Some are general time pass disciples. Some are dear disciples whom they really love. They are affectionate, and that comes through seva. So it is this shishya has made themselves affectionate to the guru by seva. And once they become that, Guravo Guhyam Apyuta, the guru reveals all the confidential knowledge to such disciples. So if you really want the core answers from Guru, bas चिपक लो एकदम, छोड़ने का नहीं फिर. Never leave them. Do such heartful seva. Heartful, not lip service. Not like a business ki, I will get out everything and then leave. Genuine seva with no attachment that I will one day get anything, but you will get. So I'm saying genuine seva, okay? Not with a hetu. That should never be there. Okay. So yeah. Okay, we need to. Okay, so on this one. Then next 5 verses are on the power of spiritual knowledge. We will go through this quickly. That 35, having obtained real knowledge from the self-realized soul, you will never again fall into such illusion. For by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. So the power of spiritual knowledge, the result of this Jnana Yoga is that one gains self-realization, one gains moksha, and at that level, one sees everybody to be part and parcel, P and P, part and parcel of Krishna or the Supreme. This Jnana Yoga, 36, even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So this boat, this Jnana is the boat to cross over material miseries. It's called as Jnana Plava, Plavena. Plava means boat. Even if one has faults, some faults, again, not serious faults, we'll discuss this more in Apichet Suduracharo 9.30. But even if one has faults, that is the power. It's not, the purpose of this verse is not to say you can have faults. One should definitely try to remove faults. But this is the power of Jnana, that it can deliver a person even if he has faults. 37, as a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. That the power is to burn all the karmic reactions. Everything is burnt up by Jnana. So this is like, you don't have to go through, if there's a lot of unlimited amount of karmic baggage we are carrying, by Jnana Yoga, all of that is eradicated. But Krishna says by Bhakti also he does it. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksheshyami. So Bhakti also has that, and in a much easier way, but Jnana Yoga also burns up all the reactions that one is carrying. 38, purity of Jnana Yoga, and it reveals itself to the sincere yogi. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. So what it means is that this knowledge reveals itself to the sincere yogi. Tat swayam yoga samsiddham. So swayam, tat swayam, this knowledge self-reveals itself. So when the yogi performs Jnana Yoga, that is known as the day of enlightenment. Finally, one day he becomes enlightened by sitting under a rock or a tree or whatever, one gains Jnana. So one day the light bulb goes on. 39. Now comes Shraddha. So a faithful man, and then this contrast between Shraddha and Ashraddha. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. So by faithfully, by Shraddha, following, because this is a very hard process, and for the hard process, you don't know when the result will come. It takes a long time to come, but one should stay determined. That is known as Shraddha, that one should have faith that yes, today it is hard, I cannot see the end of the tunnel, but it will come. That is Shraddha, having faith. Okay, and then Lord Krishna says, achirena, to encourage us that it will not take that long. It will happen very soon. Doubters. So doubt is very, very, very debilitating. Doubters beware. Okay, so doubts are the number one killer of spiritual progress. So 40, but ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is no happiness in this world or in the next, nor in the next. So doubts, one should do everything. Doubts are to be killed by the sword of knowledge. 41, one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions and whose doubts have been destroyed by the transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. So doubts are to be killed by knowledge, and knowledge comes from Shastra and Guru. Shastra may not answer your direct doubts because Shastra cannot speak back to you. Guru can speak back to you. So Guru ultimately reveals Shastra, but also he clarifies doubts. So that goes back to the whole discussion of Pariprashnena Sevaya. And out of the two, Seva is most important. Then all the answers will come. The real answers, the guhya answers, the confidential answers will come. And so many doubts can be there in the spiritual path. So many. First of all, where is the light at the end of the tunnel? I have been walking. I don't see any light. That can be the fundamental doubt. Is God real? I see only darkness. Why do devotees suffer? Oh, devotees are also suffering. I am also suffering. So why follow devotional service? What is the benefit? Is it real? All that stuff. So clarifying doubts is very, very important. So that is the end of the chapter. Last verse. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. Okay, so that is the end of the chapter. So the summary is know and act. Action with knowledge is very important. And finally, clarifying doubts through Shastra and Guru. So these are some of the main points of the second half of the fourth chapter. All right. So it is 7 o'clock here and I really need to go. So I will stop here. We will take any questions next time. Please stay tuned for the announcement of the classes. But yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandvat Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna,